fi putut și puteți să vedeți în continuare, dacă sunteți mai mult decât curioși, background-ul invitațiilor noștri. Nu o să intru acum în detalii, dar o să-i rog să spună câteva cuvinte despre ei la început. După care vom intra în tema propusă de Janette și Peter. O să avem, de fapt, inițial am avut minte să facem două conferințe cu ei, dar având în vedere timpul foarte scurt, vom avea o primă parte despre tema pe care ne-a propus-o Janette. Cea a doua parte va fi cu Ed despre leadership. El este unul dintre cei mai mari experți din lume și nu spun doar să mă aflu în treabă, ci într-adevăr este un tip pregătit în a învăța și pregăti pe alții în leadership. Vă spuneam, colaborează foarte bine cu agenții americane guvernamentale și cu Organizația Națiunilor Unite, ONU, pe diferite programe. So I switch in English now. I just make a short introduction about our intention, why you are three there. But also I invite you to, at the beginning, say a few words about yourself. Just a little bit of background. And also I say that we have two conferences in one. We will talk also about the leadership with Ed. And I will start now, and I will let you lead this conference. So floor is yours. The question will be later on. So Peter, Janette, and Ed.
Okay. Most of you are familiar. My name is Peter Moon. I'm an author and publisher from America. I live in New York. I hope that someday some of you can come to visit me in New York. This ATLANTYKRON is all about a personal journey, and my personal journey has led me to you in ATLANTYKRON, and it's a very incredible journey because it is about the frontier of time, the final frontier of time. And of course, I've written a book called The Montauk Project Experiments in Time, which was a book that changed the way the world looked at time. Scientists were forced to come up to speed because Preston Nichols was a scientist who worked on time projects. And that book was brought to the attention of Dr. David Anderson, who liked it because he realized that my mind was very open about time in a way that most of his colleagues were not. So he ended up bringing me here 5 years ago, and I believe, as I said yesterday, that it was a marker in time. He wanted me to come to Romania for some reason that remains mysterious, unknown. Some part of him wanted me to be here. And I think we will see him here again in the future at some time. But when I arrived here, I was told by Florine and Mihaila and others to go to Sarmasejatuza. So this has become a great personal quest, and we will be going there. Now, Janette, and I will talk more about my journey in a moment, but I'm going to give context to Janette had contacted me. She was in Romania. Maybe she can say a few words about that. Just before I continue, say how did you and why did you contact me?
So, this is my 6th time to Romania, and the 3rd time a 16-year-old boy had just read Radu Sinamar's books, and he was telling me all these stories of secret caverns and tunnels under the Buceci Mountains, and he said, "You have to go there." And I said, "Why would I want to go to a top secret place?" I don't know what that is. And it snowed, so we didn't have to go to the mountain. But he said, because of your special gifts, you can just go on a journey, a shamanic journey. So I sat in an apartment in Bucharest, and I journeyed into the mountain, into the cavern at Buceci. And I saw some things that later, when I read Peter's translation of Radu's books, I had to call Peter and say, "Peter, I know this place. I've been there in an inner journey." And so out of my mouth comes, "We have to do a trip together." And so I'm bringing people from all over the world, as far away as Australia, to come, and we're spending 10 days traveling around to the sacred places, feeling the energy, opening portals, having an adventure. So that's how we came with you.
Thank you. Now, when
Peter, excuse me, just we have 2 microphones over there. 3 actually with heads.
All right.
Thanks.
when this was about 3 years ago she said this. So she says, do you want to do a trip together? And I said, sure. And of course, she says, I plan things far in advance. So it took some 2.5 or 3 years for it to happen. And there was a question of whether her husband Ed here would be able to make it. And when she said he could, I lobbied hard for him to be, not just come along with us, which he would have done, and I wanted her to come to ATLANTYKRON. That was not a requisite, but I said this is a wonderful opportunity for her to get a bigger dose of not only Romania, but esoteric Romania and the wonderful things that are done here and the special spot here. So I mean, I could have easily just come here and met up with her later, but no, I wanted her to be a part of the family that's here. And when Ed was coming, I knew that he had incredible talents to offer you in the area of leadership. So, you know, I'm more than happy to share the time that would be allotted to me or us with him, because his skills are very important. Leadership is a very important part of what goes on here and what needs to go on here. And of course, the roles that Janette and I are doing are leadership in the esoterica of life, which is very important. And so I want, Ed, I want you to say a few words about what you're going to do later after Janette and I speak.
Okay, great. Delighted to be here. And if you heard me introduce myself the other night, you heard me say that I've had the privilege of working with people from 67 countries. And when we've worked with people for at least 2 days, we have always taken them through a process that invited them to see themselves differently than they ever have before, in a most empowering way. So I'm going to invite you to go on a journey with me, a little experiential opportunity with me, and at the end of that, I suspect that 95% of you will see yourself differently in a very empowered way at the end of that. That's what I'm going to take you through. Then after that, if you want to get together and talk about leadership specifically and ideas and tools and what you could do more effectively, I would love to do that after lunch, those kinds of things.
Thank you, Ed. Now I'm going to begin speaking by a little bit more about how I got in this adventure that we're on and where we're going, what we're doing, and how it can or will impact Romania, which I consider Romania my adopted country, my second country. There are people and indications that I should move here. Well, I can only move here if I learn the language, number one, and if the vibration of what I'm doing now, which is at a very high level of vibration with Qigong, can graduate to a higher level. There's indications that that might happen, but it's a potential, not a certainty. Now, and I got to share one thing. When I last saw David Anderson, I said, what can you tell us about the future? And he gave me a very honest, a very good answer. He says, it is uncertain. I loved his answer. Because if you're working with somebody like him who ostensibly has insights into time and into what might be happening, and he says that, well, it reiterates free will, free choice. Now, the adventures I've had with the Montauk Project led to experiences in synchronicity, quantum synchronicity, and we're not going to go and elaborate on those because they're quite extensive and they're in all of my books and they're utterly fascinating, but we have to be very condensed here in a short amount of time. So what I learned about synchronicity, it's a word coined by Carl Jung, the psychologist who was the colleague and contemporary and eventually break away from Sigmund Freud. But Carl Jung said, he coined the word synchronicity in the Western language, and he said that it is a precursor to the Tao. The Tao, or T-A-O in English, which pronounced Tao, is the principle underlying all other principles, the mystery underlying all mysteries. When you can define the Tao, it is not the true definition. So, but synchronicity means you're approaching that underlying mystery, that fundamental. I tried to study Taoism when I was a teenager, in the beginning of my esoteric adventures, similar in age to you. And there was only the book, the Tao Te Ching. The practitioners were silent, they were secret. They were near me in San Francisco, in Chinatown, but they were not going to open their doors to a Westerner. The story of Bruce Lee is notorious about them closing the doors to the Westerner, closing him teaching Westerners, and eventually he goes down the tubes. But all of my adventures in synchronicity and time led me to the medicine man of the Montauk Indians, Artie Crippen, who was half Chinese and half Montauk Indian. And of course, the native indigenous people are embracive of all peoples. There's not this sequestered, no, you don't belong. So he introduced me to my Qigong teacher, Roosevelt Gainey, and who was, as one of my healing friends who met him said, he knows how to be in a body better than anybody I've ever met, because he can do wonderful things. And I'm not going to make this a lecture on Qigong, but it's too important not to mention. Qigong has been an integral part of my development because it has taught me life extension, athletic extension. I would be washed up as an athlete, which I enjoy doing still. I wouldn't be able to play if not for the Qigong, because it extends my ability to play at a decent or high level. I could play at an even higher level if I spent more time practicing, but there are other priorities. And the Qigong is energy, it is breath work, it is spirit work, it is life work. And of course, when you do it, magical things begin to happen. Now, all of this work that I was doing, and with David Anderson contacting me and leading me, bringing me here to ATLANTYKRON and Romania, simultaneous to this, I was making negotiations or relations with Sorin Hormuz, who we want to get here someday. He couldn't make it this year. He's the editor or the publisher, the owner of Daksha Publishing, who has published Radu Shinamar's books in Romanian. And I will be meeting with him at some point on this journey. But these books are about this wonderful, incredible chamber called the greatest artifact in Romania, that's beneath the Sphinx in Bucegi. And it has holographic technology, according to the story, that reads out your DNA, much like we were seeing on the Apple iPad yesterday with molecules and whatnot, only this is a little more graphically intense. And it's a wonderful adventure story, but he insists it's true. The second book in the series, which would be translated directly from Romanian as 12 Days, A Secret Initiation in the Mysterious Land of the Gods, I published it in English as Transylvanian Moonrise. And it's an incredible story. In fact, it's the best book I've ever read as a science fiction fan, or as a science fan, or as an esoteric fan. It is literally the best book. It's like Roberto was talking about, his favorite author, Robert Sheckley. Well, this book is my favorite book. And